and welcome back to another episode of Dave and Ryan Review. Um, how's it going, Dave?
Yeah, good. I'm optimistic about this one.
Yeah, this is something I think we might have even said like literally about 4 years ago when we were first um, talking about reviewing, and the film we're going to be reviewing today is Man of Steel from 2013. Um, yeah, this is going to be an interesting review for the both of us. I think for the first time we will not be aligned in how we think. Um, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting talk. So I think, let's not beat around the bush. Let's just get on with it. Um,
Mhm.
so 2013 Man of Steel. This was obviously the first Superman film, I guess, for about 5 years because I think it was 2007 for Superman Returns. This was sort of the reimagined. This was the big reinvention of Superman, following on, and they were seemingly taking it in the same vein as Batman: The Dark Knight. At this point, lots of hype for this film. Lots of, the trailers were incredible. I was actually in hospital at one point during just before this film came out, and the trailer was one of the only things that sort of kept my spirits up while I was in there. And yeah, I think I even organised a trip to see this film for my birthday that year because I was just so excited for this film. So to give the full context of this film, um, what I will say is overall for me this film was just a no. It was I there were so many things I didn't enjoy about it, things I just wholeheartedly disagreed with. Um, and there were some things I liked, but I think overall this just was a no for me. How did you feel about the film, Dave?
So I've got two sort of lines of thought. I remember we actually went to the cinema to see this,
Mm.
and I remember sitting there next to you, and we were pretty. I think we were kind of talking through it, but we were watching it, and I remember there was a certain moment where you just turned to me and went, "I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with this." And it was like, I've got my thoughts on the film, plus I've got you. And what's odd is we normally see see films pretty, you know,
Yeah, I think that's fair.
parallel.
I think that's fair.
Um, so this was an odd watch. This is an odd watch for us
Mm,
because it's like, wow, we've both come to a completely different conclusion.
absolutely.
Um, I think my just going on my opinion of when I first watched it, I thought it was very action heavy, didn't give you a lot of a chance to breathe, and I needed some time to process what I was seeing. As time's gone on, I do love this film. I do love Henry Cavill as Superman. Um, yeah, I think it does stand the test of time. But yeah, it's definitely not a perfect film, and there's things in it that will be highlighted throughout the review. But yeah, I'm a firm lover of Man of Steel. So yeah, that puts us at a different place, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, I remember that. That's sort of me watching it. You can imagine my face just beaming at the beginning, and then as we've gone through the film, it gradually getting less smiley, and by the end, it was a full scowl. Um, full sad face by the end. Um, for me, the bits, the things that were, I thought were good. I enjoyed the sort of different version of Krypton at the beginning, where it's a more natural, organic kind of world compared to sort of the more crystalline view we'd seen previously. I
Hmm.
thought that was quite good. A different take on it, which I didn't really have a problem with. Russell Crowe's good as Jor-El. I quite like the guy as Zod. I think he's good. Um, Odd the way they get sent to the Phantom Zone in the phallic shaped ships into the hole in the sky, which is a bit on the nose if you're looking for symbolism. Very strange, but that's that. But yeah, I quite enjoyed that first bit. I thought the is it the High Council's like strange outfits where they've got like gold and it looks bit that was a bit over the top compared to what everyone else was wearing. But okay, that's a nitpick for that particular bit. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that opening scene. But the things that really, so that, and in some respects, I kind of like Henry Cavill as Superman. I think he looks the part, um, but just the character himself didn't come across to me as how I would see Superman. So I don't mind
Would you
him
say
visually as Superman, but
would you say it's a story writing fault rather than a
probably,
Henry Cavill
probably, yeah,
effort?
yeah, because there's certain things that happen in the film that I don't particularly agree with. The one of the biggest ones, so the things that really got to me, as an avid Smallville fan, if you've watched Smallville, if you like Smallville, one of the the biggest and most popular characters, obviously Jonathan Kent, and in a lot of different versions, he's had varying degrees of importance in the different versions before, but in Smallville specifically, he was very important and he was very forthright, and obviously he was foundational in how Clark becomes Superman. His ethics, his morals, and everything like that. This version of Jonathan Kent is not. It's not a moral man at all. In the fact that he was suggesting, no, he doesn't even suggest. He outright says Clark should be letting children die so they don't know his secret. Now, that is a very different kind of message that you're giving across, and I didn't enjoy that. And I also didn't enjoy when obviously he dies, and he doesn't die. So in usual Superman storytelling, it's well, as far as I'm aware, it's some sort of heart attack or something like that, where Superman, no matter how fast and strong and laser eyes and ice breath and all that kind of stuff, he can't save him from a heart attack. And that sort of always to me that's what made sense. He can't do anything, no matter all his power. So it sort of taught him the lesson that you can't save everyone. In this, he's in a tornado and he goes back into the tornado to save the dog for some reason, even though his son is literally invulnerable. Um, and he puts his hand up to say no. And so I don't enjoy that part of Jonathan Kent, but also for this one, Clark, where he doesn't go and save he literally watches his dad die when he could have done something, quite easily done something. I just that to me was just a egregious um, thing there.
I agree. I agree that it was, yeah, poor, and any day of the week, Superman would have just saved his dad. Wouldn't have mattered who saw.
And I think he could have done it
Because
without anyone seeing. I think he could have quite easily done
he
it
was
without anyone seeing.
and he was saving kids when he was younger, and they were like, "Oh, we saw Clark save the bus, so
Yeah.
why?" You know. So I agree. I agree with that. I know why they did that. I don't think it was a good reason, but they wanted Henry Cavill to, or Superman to say, "My dad said I wasn't ready, but now what do you say? Like, what do you think? Do you think I was ready?" And you're supposed to be like, "Yeah, you are ready," but you're flooring a character. You're flooring Jonathan Kent.
Mm.
Um, in Christopher Reeve's Superman, it's so powerful when he's at the funeral and he's standing there and he's like, "I've got all these powers and I couldn't save him," and you feel that weight of like, I'm powerful, but I'm also weak, and yeah, I agree with you on that. For that,
Which is a shame because
I,
Kevin Costner is an amazing actor, unbelievable actor,
mm,
um, and I feel like they just sort of gave him a bit of a. It could have been an inspirational character as he was on the show, but he was just sort of quite a Debbie Downer, like
mm,
sticking them like he didn't inspire Clark. I just don't that feeling from him I didn't get from this film. And so that was definitely the thing that was a very large letdown was the character of Jonathan Kent.
there's a nice moment because I think by these kids and they're like, "Come on, Kent," and it's a very typical stereotypical bully, and he's standing there and he's like with his hand, but they don't realize. And then his dad watches, and they have like a sort of a nice. He's like, "I know you could have done something but you didn't, and that was
Mm.
the right thing. That's
Yeah, I remember
there's
that
like,
bit. Yeah, but it was. I remember it being told. It was that part of his life was told in these weird flashbacks, sort of in the middle of like we're trying to tell the
mm,
story, and he's basically doing the Batman like traveling the world kind of thing, and he's working on a ship and all this other stuff, and but we're telling these story in a flashback, and I remember just not enjoying the way they were showing us these little
because
moments.
it was like back, then forward, back, then forward.
I just remember that
I
sort of
don't-
chopping and changing between the two just felt really like, oh,
yeah,
I just want to sit in that world, the pre-super, like it's maybe it's a bit cliche because they've done it in the first Superman. They're trying to change it up, but I think it's just such a simple story to tell. That opening, if you're gonna do the show him before he was Superman, I just think just show it. If you're not gonna
yeah,
show it, then fine, like let's crack on. But you
mm.
were showing us because in the end we see the ship and we see all this stuff and yeah, I just feel like just show us the whole thing. And even so, yeah, so that was yeah, go on, Dave.
So what I call one of the scenes I enjoy, Clark with his full beard. He's working on the boat, and it's you've got the scene in the oil rig, and he finally, like, he gets people, he clears people. The score in this film, I think, is incredible. I've actually got the CD
Yeah, no,
in my,
I'd agree. That's definitely, it's a shame from my point of view that the score is so incredible. Um, I was a
Mhm.
bit disappointed we didn't have, because I think the original Superman film from the Superman theme from the Superman film is one of those. It's like a Star Wars level theme, I think.
Mm,
So I feel like it should have been incorporated in some way. But having said that, I really enjoy is it Hans Zimmer. Um, the
yeah.
score for the film is very good. It is
I do have a couple of friends that do, whenever I talk about Man of Steel, they do say, "Oh, have you heard the main theme or the?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've got it in my car. Like, I've got a CD of it. Like, I love it's a very simple, and it's, Superman's a hard, like, the original is obviously a classic, da, 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 but you know, Hans Zimmer does do a great job with the score.
yeah. Like if it was
Um,
going to be replaced, then this is fine. I still would like to hear the original theme just woven
mm.
throughout because as I said,
Well,
I
do you
think
remember?
it's like if you make another Indiana Jones or if you make I don't know um yeah, you make another Star Wars, you're gonna have those themes. Those themes are gonna be playing throughout because they're just so good.
Do you
Um,
remember in? I know we're going off topic a little bit, but do you remember in the Justice League film, the first one, they put it back in at a really weird moment.
isn't it
Do
when
you
he's
remember that?
fighting the rest of the Justice League? Isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not even like a heroic. Yeah, it's when he's fighting and he's like swinging but not landing,
Hmm.
and it
Like
was
he
just like a really
punches.
odd.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Um, I mean, this is yeah, yeah. With that, but the just to go back, the actual Man of Steel theme is
Mm,
excellent. Um,
yeah,
I would say the character of Lois Lane in the film, um, not a massive fan. I thought she was a bit underserved in that, again, it was just this weird sort of like, oh, I'm trying to find out who this guy is, and then somehow she figures it out and she just manages to follow all these clues and just does it in like 10 minutes or 20 minutes in the film and you're like hang on a sec, what? And she knows, so it's obviously again they're changing the fact that she knows that he is Superman. um and it's
it's
just a
very convenient, isn't it?
yeah, it was
How
just like, oh,
Lois
I just found this one clue, and then went here, and I went to the army base, and I managed to sneak past the army guys, round the cliff, up the cliff, into the fortress, and then, but it's not really a fortress, but you know what I mean. He gets in there, and
Yeah.
there he is, and I'm like, oh, is that it? Um, it was just like, oh, that's a bit of a anticlimactic, I guess. Um, uh,
I didn't mind her in this film, but as the other films have gone on, she's drip like
because that's what I mean. I
always,
think because they didn't really
always.
set her up. Again, all we can do is compare this version to other versions we've seen. You compare to Margot Kidder in the Superman film. You know,
Mm,
you don't get that same strong. impression that I think that she gave, that this woman is such a, a large personality. This one just felt a bit wishy-washy. I don't know. I just didn't get that fit. Like I don't. I just feel like they didn't really give her the moments to really, I don't know, sell the character. That, for me. And the same goes for like, some of the sort of like the, Martha Kent again. Just a bit of a non-entity. I feel like, and I think there's a lot of, because again, like, I think this film is just so, because it sort of devolves into just pure action, like at some point, and again,
That's one of the problems when I first watched it, but now I've seen it, I'm obviously fine with it.
mm,
But it didn't doesn't give you a chance to breathe, and I think sometimes you need that human element, you know.
yeah, especially with Superman, I think, we're supposed to be charmed by him. He just comes across as a guy that just doesn't care about anything. Like, he doesn't care about anyone really. He
Who's that? Sorry.
Superman. That's how I think he comes across as too alien. Like, he doesn't come across as like a human, as more human. But again, that's just, what they've given him to do. The one of the biggest, probably the biggest thing I have a problem with is that whole last bit. You know, basically from when that Earth, he's fought the Kryptonians. He's gone up to the ship with the AI. Um, Russell Crowe, was just a weird whole thing. And then he comes back down, he beats like the Earth Changer thing, but then there's like a ship with all the Kryptonians. It's got like, these are the last remnants of Krypton. Are these people? There are people here. These are the last people of Krypton, and he just decides to kill them all. And I'm just like, whoa, wait, what? They're not necessarily all criminals. But he was like, yeah, whatever, blows them up. I think he literally, like, it lands in the middle of Metropolis and just craters this whole thing, right? Memory serves me correctly. And then it's
Mm.
just him and Lois kissing as the world burns behind them. And I'm like, this is not the imagery I want to be seeing. Superman, he just didn't seem like he was affected by what had just happened. Probably hundreds of, maybe even thousands of people have just died, like, in this bit of this massive crater. And then we get on to just the most egregious part of it is when he starts fighting Zod in Metropolis. And obviously they tried to sort of retcon it, retcon some goodness in the Batman vs Superman, but we're not going to talk about that at the beginning of that film. But basically, you know, Superman is fighting Zod with no care for anything that's happening around him. Doesn't matter who's dying, what's blowing up, what he's destroying. And I just remember thinking as I was watching it, like, it's a little odd. He's not even turning and trying to save someone, or trying to not hit into buildings. Like, he did not care at all. Um,
I
and that,
think, well,
yeah, and
when I
that's that. I
watched it,
remember
when I
just
watched it,
thinking that this is crazy. I just remember at the time thinking, this is crazy. This is actually, someone's watched this and thought, you know what Superman should do? He should have no care for what he's actually doing. Like, this was a version of Superman that had no care for anyone.
I think, yeah, when you watch it, it's he's when he's fighting punching Zod, he's trying to punch him away from the city, and then Zod is flying back into it.
Yeah, but he's not. But he
Um,
could easily just try and keep him out there. But he could fly away to fight somewhere else. He's just like, no, 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 let's do it here. Punching him into buildings, punching through buildings, smashing through. Like, I guess my point is, I understand what you're saying. Like, Zod's keeping him there, but he doesn't even like turn to try and save anyone or anything. And it's, I remember, I think I remember after he's like, well, everyone had evacuated. It's fine. Like, no, thousands of people died, like, easily, at that point. I just remember thinking it was really, again, another odd choice. Even
mm,
if it could have just been little parts. So that's one thing that is probably the biggest part of this film. Superman's actions towards people. He doesn't really save anyone in this film at all, except for right at the end to save this tiny family who could just walk away, but they choose just to sit there while the laser beams are coming towards them, or the heat beams are coming out of Zod's eyes, and he's like, "I'm gonna kill them." And I mean, they could just move, but they decide not to for some strange reason. I mean, they had a lot of time to just get out of there, and Superman decides to snap his neck. Um,
That
I
was the
remember that, I think
moment
that was the
that he
point where I
was.
turned to you and I was like, I don't like this.
You,
You
you said your exact words were, "I'm not okay with that,"
know.
and I said, "Why?" I think I said, "Why not?" And you said, Superman would never kill anybody."
And you know what? I've seen some interesting videos since where it's like actually, obviously that's in storytelling, maybe Superman should kill people like Zod because he's so dangerous that actually he'd be doing the world a favor by doing that because he's the only one that can make that decision. But even that, I was like, and I guess,
He shouldn't.
and I guess actually, it's actually in character for this version of Superman. He doesn't care at all, and they try to pay it off by him going no at the end, screaming, and I mean, it's embarrassing. You can't
I,
have him care about this guy, and he just killed thousands of people before this. Thousands.
I think it's fair to say, like, there's a video out there that addresses all the problems that you have with the film. However, you could listen to the good arguments for like why things are different or why this Superman is acting that way. You're still not going to change your opinion on the film,
Yeah, like I
and
could,
you
like you
still
said,
come
like
to the same conclusion.
someone could explain and go, well, this is why and this, and I said, okay, that's fine, and I can hear your explanation, but he still didn't care about killing thousands of people while he was fighting Zod. He didn't even turn around to try and like stop it. He was just like flying through buildings. It's all good. Um, so that's
You could say that
those.
you could say the same thing for the Avengers, though, couldn't you? In like
No, see,
Sokovia and
yeah, no, hang on a sec. That's why it's different. Because even though they blew up that whole city, they were trying to evacuate people and catch people and save people as they were doing this stuff. That's my point. He could have just,
mm,
even if he'd have saved like three people on the screen, at least then in your head as you're watching, and in my head you're watching it going, he gives a shit about people, but he doesn't even try to save anyone. That's the problem. I don't need to see him saving thousands of people. I need to see him save a couple. I think there's a scene in Superman Returns where he's like catching people and he's saving the city and he's stopping glass fall on people and stuff like that. He does all of
mm.
that, and that has its own problems, that film. But at least you saw him trying to save people. In this, you don't
I
see any
get
of
that.
that.
There's a scene where they're having a big fight in Smallville, and someone falls out the helicopter and he flies and saves him, and you know, but
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
it was minimal. It was minimal.
I think that's my problem. Like it wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to save him, but Zod keeps, that could have been interesting. Zod stopping him from saving people, but that wasn't it. He just didn't care. And yeah, he saved a couple of people small, but when he smashes into that IHOP, everything's blowing up. Like people are dying all over the place, in Smallville. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, I think for me, it's just I think his the way they portrayed him, and I remember being a little bit worried when I saw that like Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder were going to be involved because, especially Zack Snyder, I'm not a big fan. I like 300, but that's about it. Everything else is all I feel like has been a bit meh from him,
Mm.
on from my point of view. Um, and Christopher Nolan, again, I'm not a massive fan of his films, but I enjoyed the Batman films. But I just knew they were going to go too dark and gritty and realistic. The world had to be grey. Even his suit was like dark blue, and it was all just sort of pared back. And I don't know, I remember being like, oh, they're going to grim him up, and he has to be all sullen and you know, it just did. There was no. I just feel like there should be like a hopefulness, a joyousness about Superman. I think.
So one of the hopeless, the hope parts of it, Superman, for me is when he learns to fly for the first time,
Mm.
and you've got that Hans Zimmer score going, and
But then
he's flying around, and
but then he's
the
also in.
sound.
He's also it, but it is a good moment. But also the problem with that moment is that he's in an inferior Superman costume. It's not a good costume. The Superman costume is not a good one. I like the cape. I think that's the only bit I like from the
Oh
suit.
man, I thought you lot didn't mind it.
No, I don't like the suit. It's too much blue. It's too dark. I don't like the S. I like the cape, like how big it is,
Oh man,
but
I think
I
it gets
don't.
better with time, but I do like it.
No, I need a little bit more red in there, and I need the blue to be more blue, less
It
like
was a bit dark, and
less
there's
dark
people
like
out there.
navy. It was almost like navy blue, really dark blue, nearly purple. Like it felt like really dark. Like it was too much.
There's people that have like color adjusted it and
Yeah,
resold the Blu-rays or whatever now.
yeah, I've
So
seen
I
some of
think
that. Like, and
you're
I've
not the only one that
yeah, it
that
was
feels
just
that
like
way.
again, it was that overall tone of the film that was like down and like can't be too happy in this film. Like yeah, like it was. But that's the
They were
thing.
going for
His
they were going
his
for a realistic theme, wasn't they? And I think
But yeah, but you've
like
just had
the
aliens attack the
second,
planet and and you've got a guy flying about with a cape, and it's like, but it needs to be realistic. It's like, you know what I mean? Like there has to be levels. There has to be a bit more
yeah,
balance with what they were doing. Um, and yeah, and yeah, yeah. It's just I remember being very disappointed. I think a bit where he actually came across quite well is where he went into custody. He's got he's chained up, and they think they've got him, and he's just looking through the the mirror, and he's just like, I know you're there, and he starts talking to people, and he literally just stands up. He doesn't like use his strength, he just moves his hands, and everything just disintegrates off his wrists, and he's just like, look, I'm not here to hurt you. If I wanted to, I could have, I could have already.
mm,
And that felt quite good, but there wasn't enough of that. It was just like, oh
mm,
well, back to punching people, and that was sort of what if it didn't. I don't know. It just yeah, and I think yeah, just it was there was some grains of stuff in there, and I think they overcorrected in terms of action because of the um because a lot of people's problem with Superman Returns wasn't enough action. It was too you know Lex Luthor with a uh bloody real estate plot again. Like how many times do I have to see this guy like I'm gonna be buying property, and it's like all right, you know, like a bit much. So they've gone okay, well, action this time, and they've just gone, we'll just kill everyone. Um,
I think also there was no. We hadn't seen anyone have a Superman fight anyone since
oh,
Superman 4,
jeez.
which is the guy with the
See
nails.
that's a
Not
true. So that is Superman 4 is a truly bad film. Like that is a truly bad film. Um, this Man of Steel, I don't think is a bad film. Like in that in the Batman and Robin vein, in
mm,
that kind of. I don't think it's like that. I just think for me it was just very disappointing. Lots of odd choices, and I don't enjoy it. I
mm,
just don't enjoy this film. Um, which is a shame because Superman's one of my favorite characters. Um,
yeah.
which this sort of put me off for a bit, basically. Um, so yeah, like it's uh, it's an odd film to sort of go back through because it's sort of
It's weird because we're not bouncing off each other here, and we're not.
we're more
You know what
it's
I
more
mean?
of a discussion, isn't it? We're
It's
discussing
really.
those moments.
I want to tell you like what I love about it, but
Go
it's
for
like,
it.
what's the point?
No, but
Like,
that's the
well,
point
I'm
of
not.
this, isn't it? You should really go
Like,
for
so
it.
what?
Go on.
But
What do you? Because you said you enjoyed this film. What did you love about it? I've been ranting away. What did you love about it?
no, I don't know. I think they've put effort in every scene. I
Mm,
think they've really, I think they've got they thought let's get a good bunch of actors.
mm,
You've got Lawrence Fishburne. You've got flipping. Everyone I think puts in a really good performance. I think Henry Cavill, he amazing shape the guy got in. The bit where he's trying to find some clothes after the sea is like flipping hell, mate. Making me feel like less of a man because he's
mm,
ripped to shreds. Looks a bit like Wolverine actually. I think he, I just I really love it. His like when he learns to fly and he's like smiling when he gets it and he's breaking the sound barrier, across the sea. the noise of the flight itself, like the,
Mm.
I think is awesome, and
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think
The flight
like
was done quite well, definitely.
um, you know, yeah, I think there's a lot of chaos, and it's like, oh man, yeah, all that person must have got caught in that debris. Yeah, so that's not to be ignored. I think visually it looks very good. I think they must have chucked a lot of money at this film because like
Mm.
the CGI is pretty good in a lot of spots.
Yeah.
Like when he walks through the fire. Like I said, I love the oil tanker scene where he's
Mm.
holding it down so the helicopter can get away. Um, and then yeah, I don't know, man. It's just I just enjoy it. I just enjoy the film, and
Mm.
I think I think like when we talk about the Matrix, when I was like, oh, when he drops the guns on the floor and it does the 360. Oh, the guns up there, and you're like, oh, that doesn't matter. It's a little bit like that for me. Like I hear all your points, and I think they're all valid, and they're all. But when I'm watching it, my brain doesn't tap into those moments, and it doesn't ruin the film for me. But I think they're all valid points. I think they're all. I don't really have any arguments with them, like
Mm.
the complaints.
But it's a film
It's
you
like,
enjoy, isn't it? This,
yeah, and
it
I
was
think
contentious for a long time. We would discuss this i- in eternum, this film, because you really enjoyed it, Jack really enjoyed it, and I was like, nah, this is not for me. This is not the Superman film I wanted, and I definitely did not enjoy that film. And yeah, like neither of
I
us have managed to convince the other to change their mind. It's just sort of been like, this is how I feel
you
about
know
it,
what?
and
If you
that's
know anything about boxing,
yeah.
right? There's a fight between Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler, and it's the longest sort of argument of who really won that fight. Now they gave the fight to Sugar Ray Leonard, but there's so many people out there going, no, Hagler won that fight. Now, I feel like this film is like that. It's controversial, and you've got people that love it, you've got people that hate it, people that are not sure, and I think that's probably a fair place to put it because you said you don't hate it,
No,
you don't put it in there with like Batman and Robin, but
no,
you can't love it.
no,
You know what I mean? And
no.
I kind of
There.
see what I see what they were going for, what they were aiming for. I don't think they hit the mark like 100%, but I'm pretty satisfied with what they did achieve.
Mm,
Um, yeah,
yeah.
you
No, I
know,
mean it's a funny thing, isn't it? Just what you pick up in when you're watching. So I guess it was, when what expectations, you go in with certain expectations about what you want to see, and then sometimes films beat those expectations. Like a film the following year, Guardians of the Galaxy, I had no expectations whatsoever, and I
mm,
thought this was going to be maybe one of the worst films I'd ever seen. Um, and it's in my top 10 films now, and I think especially at that point, unfortunately for DC, they were just sort of, they weren't hitting it out of the park. Where at a time when Marvel were hitting it out of the park most of the time. Most of the films
mm,
were good to great at that point. Less so these days. Um, but they were, and this came out Superman, and I think plenty of the Marvel films did more. I think even Guardians of the Galaxy earned more money than Superman, which is insane at the box office, which
that's
is
probably
just
true.
which is bananas. If this is
Mm,
Superman. This is one of the premier um, fictional characters in in history, probably up there with all the literary characters that you can think of, Sherlock Holmes and
mm.
Dracula, and all of that kind of stuff. He's right there, and
Do you know what? Saying that, yes, he is loved. Yes, he is the number one, or should be the number one in my eyes. However, whenever I speak to people and say, "Oh, who's your favorite superhero?" or "Who do you whatever," a lot of the complaints about Superman is that he's too good, he's too perfect, he has too many things. So for that reason, they don't like him.
yeah,
And
but
I
I
think
don't
that
think they've
causes
done a
a
good
problem.
Superman film since basic like a very good Superman film since Superman 2. We've had Superman 3, which was, it was fine. Superman 4, which is atrocious. Then we had and we didn't have anything until Superman Returns, which I
I
enjoy.
like Superman.
I
I like
enjoy, and I
Superman
like.
Returns.
It's it's a charming film, especially you compare it to this. You know that one you can like Clark in that film. You like him. I don't think you like this guy who's just killing everyone. Um, but there's boring bits. You got the silly Superboy thing, and it's Lex Luthor again, kryptonite. You've got all of that kind of going on. So we haven't had like no one has hit it out of the park for like 40 years. Like it's been a long time since someone made a really great Superman film, and it's been a long, long time, and
Okay,
we're way overdue.
question, question: is it possible to make a good Superman
Absolutely.
movie in
If
this day and age?
Yes,
Because in the what 70s or 80s, I feel like it was a lot easier to be more
dude,
crowd pleasing.
dude, we just had um at the cinema, Top Gun Maverick just made like 1.6 billion or something like that, like insane or whatever, 1.4 billion or whatever it was. This is from a 35-year-old film. People enjoyed the first one. It's not like one of those like, oh my god, it's the greatest film of all time kind of films, but it's an enjoyable film. But people enjoyed Top Gun Maverick because it was crowd pleasing, because it had all these moments and it was enjoyable and it was so if that can do it, you absolutely can make a good Superman film that is crowd pleasing. That he doesn't have to be putting his fist through Zod's head or something. Like that's because yeah. So I think you could
Ryan, I
easily
hope
do that.
you're right.
I think you can easily. You just need to not. I think they just need to just don't overthink it. Superman is fundamentally. He's above. He should be aiming to be above the sort of you know the mud where humans lie, but it just sort of like he was just diving into that mud in Man of Steel. But I genuinely believe they can make a good Superman film. Absolutely, they've done it with
Mm.
everyone else. You know, they've done it with everyone else. We got a couple of good ones, way back when, but I do think they can do better, and I think, and I just think they try to subvert expectations or be different, and it's like, you, you
Do you
know,
know what? I'm surprised. I'm surprised that they never had Tom Welling, the guy from Smallville, do some sort of Superman film after 10 years of
I think he was,
you know.
to be fair, I think
Smallville.
having heard him in interviews, I think he was more done with it. After 10 years, he was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Um, I think that was his thing at the time. But yeah, Man of Steel its legacy will be one of, like you said, Dave, mixed emotions. I think, and I think people will still watch it. Like you said, it still looks great as a film, and you could throw it on and people will watch it. Um, I would still always prefer watching Superman 1 and 2, and probably Superman Returns I'd watch over it as well. But it will still, people will still will come to keep watching it. I think that film, and I think it might be looked as a missed opportunity. I think, um,
Mm.
seeing as we're probably not going to get another Superman film with Henry Cavill, probably not at this point.
Although, as things stand now, I think there's a rumor of him being in Black Adam because there are a lot of fans that love Henry Cavill, me being one of them. Um, I don't know. There might be a Man of Steel too. You just never know.
I just feel like it's been too long, right? At this point, like it feels
Probably.
like since yeah, it just feels like it's been too long now. Um, I feel like and especially with the way the DC films are at the moment, doesn't feel like they're really continuing. They've got the Batman that came out this year with Robert Pattinson. They're probably going to have another Batman in other films. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on, so there might just be a case that they just make their own, Superman trilogy or a different version again. Maybe we go back to
Mm.
telly or something. Because I feel like telly's had has had at least two good Supermen in the last 20 years, 30 years. with Dean Cain and Tom Welling. You know, two good Clark Kents.
Dean,
So
Dean Kane, I'd do a review on that show,
yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. But yeah, yeah, I think they can do it, but I think they might do it with a new version or vision, and I hope they get it right. We still haven't had a, we haven't hit, you know, the way that Dark Knight and Batman Begins and, you know, whatever you think about Dark Knight Rises, that was a high quality set of films. I just don't think we've had that for Superman for a long time.
Fair enough.
So
All right, man.
on that note, on that bombshell, um, we'll 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 close out the show. What are we going to be reviewing next? We haven't made a decision yet, Dave, have we?
I don't think we have. I mean, please leave your comments and we'll
Yeah,
consider them.
absolutely. But great to, you know, it was a good, different, different conversation, but a conversation I enjoy nonetheless, David. And we will see you next week.
Just trying to keep my friend. That was the whole purpose of this review.
See you later.
All right, man.